What if I told you you're making a mistake every Sunday that is costing you growth, costing you impact, costing you the opportunity to get in front of potential new members and grow your church? Now, I'm not saying the mistake is intentional, and I'm not saying the mistake is 100% your fault, but it is a mistake. And I think today we need to talk about how you correct it. So, before we talk about how you correct it, let's talk about how you got here. So many of you uh, probably were not live streaming before the pandemic. And if you were, you weren't really focused on it. It was something that you did because someone told you you had to do it, or, one of the younger people in your church forced you to be a trendsetter and do it. But then the pandemic happened and our doors were shut. And many of you were faced with the first time in history even having to figure out a way to keep your church afloat, to keep the ministry going when the doors are closed. And you did any way possible, right? You started doing Zoom service. And luckily, the whole world was using Zoom. So the learning curve to get your members to look on Zoom wasn't super, super high. Some of you patched things together and started streaming on Facebook, whether it was through a phone, whether it's through a single camera or anything else, but you were able to do it. And then some of you really buckled down and said, hey, let me figure out how to do this and do this the right way. Now, here's the crazy part. All of you saw some growth because the options were limited in the world for people to do things. So you had people who were stuck at home. So if you were online, people were finding you. The problem is that once it ended, and like people do, we revert back to our normal everyday lives. I mean, when's the last time somebody's even had that conversation about the things they did when they couldn't go anywhere? You didn't change. You kept streaming an entire service without any real thought to how it impacts the people who are finding you for the first time, and you didn't evolve. And if you didn't evolve, you stopped growing, and you wondered why, and you're like, "What did I do?" Well, what you did is you didn't move and map to the way the world had changed. So that's the first thing, right? So that's how we got here. The other thing is now that so many people in so many churches have gotten into online, YouTube, more people watch YouTube on their television than on their computer. It's second only to mobile devices, and it's gaining on mobile devices quickly because everyone who buys a smart TV, Black Friday coming up, has YouTube on it, and some of them think that's their TV. So people are getting more accustomed to seeing content from that platform, but you didn't change yours. So you're showing the whole service, and you're showing it in a way that really would only appeal to the people who already go to your church, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is now that people are back and people are consuming more, you're still operating as if the only way you can grow is if people walk in your door. And the one way you're doing that is you're having one service or you're having two services, and you're relying 100% of your growth being on either people coming into your building, people into one of your services if you're having more than one, people watching you online when you've made no real effort to build a relationship, and people watching through that entire service when you leave it up after you go live when they don't know you. So those mistakes are really counting for your growth or lack of growth, sorry. So today I want to talk about one of the things you need to do to circumvent it. So let's talk about the fact that you may only have one or two services. And again, I'm not knocking you because a lot of small churches just don't have the volunteer resources. Every new service is like taking on another shift at a factory. You have to staff it. So I get that part. But the problem with it is there's a couple assumptions in that. The assumption is that everyone who wants to come to your church knows you're airing at that time, and that everyone who needs to be connected or wants to be or desires or should be or God wants them to be connected to your church can come during that time, right? And the analogy I always give people is that if you had a store or a restaurant that was only open an hour and a half or 3 hours, one day a week, how often would you connect with them, right? They would have to blow you away the one time you connected with them, because you don't build an affinity. You can't make it a part of your everyday activity. There's not enough incentive. That's what many of modern day ministries do. So the way you circumvent that is you leverage the tool that you learned over that time when everyone couldn't move, and you take over Sunday. Let's call it take over Sunday. And how do you take over Sunday? You have a service. You present a service in every time zone across Sunday. And you're like, why? Why would I do that? I'm a local church. A couple of reasons. One is because even the people who live near you may have different work schedules. They may not have a desire for church. So during the mornings, they may be taking their kids to team camp or practices, going to brunch, all of those different things, right? By doing it in every time zone, you're able to meet them where they are, even if they're not where they need to be, and build that relationship, right? Now you're like, well, you just told me I'm a small church. How do I do that? Well, I didn't say host multiple services. I said present them. So how you present them is you take the recording of your service or one of your services, if you have multiple services, and you stream that in multiple time zones. You stream it in multiple time zones because that allows them to build that relationship with you. That allows them to build that relationship with you on their time. And again, platforms like YouTube and Facebook have billions of people. So it allows you to gain entryway to them on their time. So I know what you're thinking. You're like, well, I'm doing that now. I stream it and I leave it up. But here's what you don't understand. There is a mental switch in people's mind that has a big difference in between what they consider live or on-demand content. So live content is content that is being streamed to you. We grew up with recorded television. The very few shows were shown live to a studio. They were shown live to an audience, but they were recorded. And when we watched them, they were recording. But because they came on at a specific time, in a specific slot, in our minds, we're watching that with other people. And what you don't understand is that same mental switch happens when you turn on a live stream. Even if there's only 5 other people, I'm not by myself. So if I'm not by myself, I'm willing to explore something at a level that I wouldn't if I just found it and watched it on demand, because the emotional connection is not there. So even though you're leaving it up, it's not generating that same response. So what you need to do is you need to take that recording and you need to stream it and do it. So let me show you a visual illustration of what that will look like. So let me do this right. This is you on YouTube. And let's say you stream a different color. You're 10 a.m. But let's say you take that recording, streaming at 12 p.m. Then you take that same recording, streaming at 3 p.m. And you take that recording and stream it again at 6 p.m. 9 p.m. 11 p.m. Now, what you're not realizing is this 12 p.m., if I'm on Eastern time, is 9 a.m. PST. 1 p.m. PST. 3 p.m. PST. 6 p.m. PST. And then lastly, 8 p.m. PST. So what you've done is not only have you given the people in your various time zones multiple opportunities to see your service, you have also allowed yourself to introduce it into people in other time zones. And you're like, again, I'm a small church. Why am I giving it to other people in other time zones? Because they may eventually come to your time zone. They may eventually move to you, or they may feel such a connection to you that they want to be connected even in their time zone. If you look at some of the biggest churches in the world, Elevation, Change Church, Transformation, these are things they're doing. And here's the secret. They're not having multiple services all day either. They may have 3, they may have 4, but they're not having it at 8 o'clock at night when you see them stream, or at 10 o'clock at night when you see them stream. So if it works for them, it will work for you. And here's the other beauty. By doing it this way, even if you only focus on the 100,000 to a couple 100,000 people who are within a 5-mile radius of your building, it gives them more of an incentive to try you out because they get multiple opportunities to view you. So this is a high-level strategy that I want you to employ. So if you want to learn more about it, if this is kind of getting you there, click on some of the links in the description. I'd love to share this with you more. I'm telling you, if you do this one thing consistently and over a period of time, you will see growth. I'm going to say it again. If you do this one thing consistently and repeatedly over time, you will see growth. Many of the ministries I work with, they tell me that when people come in, the first thing they say is, I've been watching you on YouTube and I decided to come in. Let's get you to the point where people say that. This is the first of many things that I'll share. If this is helpful, please like, subscribe, share with other people that this delivers value to. And God bless you. I'll see you in the next video.